Time for the business news then. French and German politicians. They're meeting in Berlin this Tuesday. Matthew's been looking at economic relations, haven't you?
Yes, because, of course, these are the two biggest economies in the European Union. German economy bigger, of course. In 2011, the size of the German economy was 2.6 trillion euros. The French one just behind that, around 2 trillion euros. Germany, the third biggest exporter in the world after the US and China. France is sixth, by the way, and trade between the two countries very important, about 150 billion euros worth in the first 9 months of last year. That puts France alongside the UK and the US, which have similar amounts of trade with Germany.
Also a bit of a sense, perhaps, of Germany trying to teach France some economic lessons?
Yes, over the last few months, there's been quite a lot coming out of Germany from different people about France needing to make some of the hard reforms that the Germans feel that they went through over the last 10 years. And the popular tabloid in Germany, the Bild Zeitung, put it in this way last year when they said, "Will France be the new Greece?" And that was their way of saying, does France need to shape up before it has problems? The German Chancellor, the former German Chancellor Gerhard Schröder, who implemented a lot of these reforms in 2003, has been talking about this on Monday this week. He gave an interview to Le Figaro newspaper, and his message there was that, as you can see, he said France needs to do its homework in terms of making these reforms. And it's not just German politicians who've been making these points about France perhaps needing to learn some lessons. Some business owners have the same view as well, as we see in this report from Josh Vardy.
They may share a border, a currency and a firm official friendship that marks its 50-year anniversary on Tuesday, but France and Germany's economic paths diverged considerably in the past few years. In many ways, the figures show strong links. Over 2,000 French towns are twin with German counterparts. Over 100,000 French people live in Germany, with relatively the same amount of Germans living in France. There are 3,000 German companies in France, 3,700 French companies in Germany. But while Germany's trade surplus for 2011 was 158 billion euros, France grappled with an immense deficit of 70 billion euros. This warehouse in the German border town of Freiburg has 700 employees but no unions. The foreman says he finds French attitudes towards the economy worrying.
We experienced the same crisis in 2008 like in France, but in Germany we've had a real understanding between employees, unions, entrepreneurs and political players.
This man comes from the border region of Alsace. With a foot in both cultures, he says while Germany and France can learn from each other, they shouldn't get any closer.
I don't believe we should imitate each other. You have to take what we think's good from each other's systems, whatever's the most effective. Keep the good things we have. I don't think we should imitate.
In the boom time of the mid-2000s, France and Germany seem neck and neck, but as the Euro crisis rolls on, 50 years of friendship is starting to look more like an unequal partnership.
And we've got finance ministers from right across the European Union, in fact, meeting this Tuesday as well, haven't we?
Yes, ministers from all 27 countries in the EU will be in Brussels, and top of the agenda, or at least one of the items on the agenda, will be this financial transaction tax. Now, 11 countries, including Germany and France, want to go ahead with this levy. They think that they're going to raise over 50 billion euros, but several countries, including Britain, Sweden, the Netherlands, not so keen. But if it's approved today, that tax could be in place within a few months.
Europe to Asia now. In Japan, a two-day meeting of the central bank has just ended, in fact, there.
Yes, now investors were waiting to see what came out of this. The bank there has promised to take action to help stimulate the economy, and it's going to set a 2% inflation target. Now, the reason that's important is it's higher than the current target, which means that the bank will have room to stimulate, boost the economy more. Now, it's been put under pressure in Japan by the newly elected government there to do this, to take these measures, and that in turn has caused some comment from others, notably Jens Weidmann, who's the head of the German Bundesbank, about what he sees as declining independence of central banks. He made a speech yesterday in Frankfurt. He talked about alarming infringements, referring to Japan and Hungary actually, threatening an end to central bank autonomy.
So how did the markets react to that news in Japan?
Well, the Nikkei had a bit of a schizophrenic reaction. First of all, it went up, and now it's falling back again. If we take a look at what's happening on the Asian markets, there it is, down slightly. The Shanghai as well, falling almost a full %.
More from Asia for you now. China, known of course for a highly developed export industry, but now it wants to add movies to the things that it's famous for.
Yeah, I mean, Chinese people love going to the cinema. It's the second biggest market after the US in the world in terms of going, and 10 new movie screens are opening every day in China. But home-produced films are not keeping up with that growth. Now, as Katerina Vitozzi reports, there are efforts to change that.
We've had the lights, the cameras, now the Chinese government wants action in its movie industry. China is currently the world's third largest producer of films. Now Beijing wants it to rival Hollywood. Last year, China made 900 films domestically, but only a fraction of these were exported.
China's film industry lacks experience in making, producing and promoting movies. Over the past years, the industry has been making up for these shortcomings through cooperation with international film companies.
In the domestic market alone, there's plenty of potential. China opens 10 cinemas every day. Last year's ticket sales topped €2 billion. But Hollywood blockbusters still dominate, despite a government quota on how many US productions can be shown and financial incentives for cinemas to screen films made in China.
I watch a lot of domestic and foreign films, but I prefer foreign ones. I like their action and sci-fi films. They're very interesting.
Critics blame government censorship for Chinese films that lack relevance and genuine human interest. The industry also needs cash. China's two biggest state-owned film companies want to join the Shanghai Stock Exchange. The extra funds could help make more big-budget blockbusters, as well as launch Chinese cinema into 3D.
Well, let's get some of the day's company news now. And IKEA is a step closer to opening stores in India. The country's foreign investment panel has approved a $2 billion project by the Swedish furniture giant. India agreed controversial plans last September to allow foreign retailers to enter the country.
The US operations of the video game maker Atari have filed for bankruptcy. The maker of the 80s favourite Pong wants to separate from its loss-making French owner. The company hopes to sell off its assets or come up with a restructuring plan in the next 3 months, in fact.
Now, McDonald's will pay $700,000 over a dispute with the Muslim community in Detroit. The fast food chain was accused of falsely claiming that it prepared its meat according to Islamic law. McDonald's denied any wrongdoing, but said a settlement was in its best interests.
An intriguing one to finish off with now, because it seems that any American who tweets could end up with their musings in one of the world's most famous libraries. What's this about?
Yes, if you can't be bothered to write a whole book, you can just send a tweet and you'll end up in the Library of Congress, which is actually the world's largest collection of books. Now, they have done a deal with Twitter. They're assembling the 400 million tweets that are sent every day. And the reason for that is that they think that they are, just like books, they're an important part of the narrative, they call it, of the country.
400 million? How on earth do they store 400 million tweets a day?
Well, exactly. That's the big issue. 400 million tweets a day, 170 billion in total. So far, it's estimated. They've been provided with 130,000 gigabytes of storage space by a company in Colorado. But the data's in such a raw state, any search could take 24 hours just for one tweet.
OK, well, apparently we can't be stored because we're not American. But if you're from the US, could you retweet me and Matthew so that we get stored? We'd like to be on there. Matthew, thanks very much. A lot more from him in around about an hour's time here on France 24. The latest news with Lorna after the break.